Now let's talk about what I have done today in the backend section. Basically, I have done a lot of things today. I have created user routes.js and then user.controller, then user.services, then user.repository. The motto behind the creating this thing is if suppose a new user comes, then how can we store the user data, how we can validate whether the new coming user have already saved data or not, how can check whether that there is a duplicate email or not. That's all about the user related things, how user can access, uh, how user can log in using their email and password, how can any user access using their ID. That's all things will be covered today. So let's start from the user routes. So before discussing the user routes, let's discuss first the user repository. What is this repository? Is basically user repository created to create the new user. If suppose uh, admin want to find whether how many users are exist, then you can use the find all functions. By calling the find all functions, we can get all the users. If someone want to find a user whether by ID, whether this user ID exists or not. If suppose someone wants to update their username, say for updating the username, uh, we can use update user. And suppose someone wants to delete his account, by using the delete user, he can easily delete their account. If suppose admin wants to find the persons using the mail, how many email used by this, uh, how many person uses the same mail, and we can easily find all of things by using find by email. That's the job of user repository. In this user repository sections will indirectly interact with the database. We will discuss later how this user repository will interact with the databases. Now I have created the user services. The purpose of creating the user services, suppose what first, let's ask you a question. So why these services basically exist? Basically, services exist to handle the business logic and why we are not dealing the business logic in the repository because the repository's only job is to create, read, update, and delete the user. Only it deals with the user data, how to save, how to create, how to handle the user data. But user services will deal with the all the business logics. For examples, whether the duplicate email will be allowed or not. If a new user comes with the same ID, the new user will be created or not. Uh, suppose if I uh, suppose a user don't register and want to access whether this user will be allowed or not. That's all things comes under the business logic. So let's see how I have coded it. First of all, I have imported all the functionality of repository where all the user data will be handled and user created or deleted, updated. All the functionality I imported from repositories user.repository.js, and I also imported the app error, which is customized error. Uh, by using it, it helps us to easily handle the error in a one centralized error handle section instead of writing all the error stuff all the files. That's why I have imported the app error. Now let's look at the first function. First function is create user services where data will be passed as a parameter. The data will be email or password into by the user. That will be data. Suppose before creating an user, first will we check whether the user email ID exists or not. If user exists, then we can say that user is already registered. It should not be allowed to re-register because its email ID exists in our database. So instantly it will throw the user already exists with the status code 409. Now then it will, if suppose user not exist, then it will call the create user create function with their data. What is this create function? This create function, which is declared on the repository section. Here, here data is also passed as a parameters in this function, where user ID will be set automatically by the uh, database, and the data will be extracted, and user will be set. User ID will be set to the user with their data, and finally it will return the user that contain ID, email, password, all the necessary data. Obviously, password will be not returned because uh, it is a security issue. If we create a security issue if we return a password. Now, for getting all the users, I have created the get all users where I have called find all. Again, the find all will the function created on the user repository section. Similarly, I have created get user by ID, update user services, and at last I have user delete user services. That's all the necessary business logic that we have required to implement. After implementing the business logic about the users, next I have created the user controller. So first of all, ask yourself what user controller does. Basically, what the controller's job. Controller's job is that it handles the HTTP request and res- basically send response in JSON format to the uh, user. That's the job of controller. Now see the code what I have implemented here. I imported the all the functions that I have all the business logic uh, imported from the services section because from the controller will receive the request and it will only call the services different business logic functions so that it should satisfy after suppose it will satisfy the business logic then business logic functions will call the repository function from the after calling the repositories functions it retrieve the data from our database. After retrieving the database, it return to the user services. After returning data to our user services, then it will return to the controller. Now it's controller jobs to return the data to the user. Now let's see first functions what I have done. I have created a async function, create user, which takes two parameter, rack response, rack as we know stand for request and as for response. Now I have declared the user where I have all the create user services where I have rack.body user data is sent. What this rack.body will contain the user data, the email or password, uh, or you can say will be sent to the this function here as a data parameter. Here after forwarding calling the create user services. Now it's a get the response from the services after receiving the response, it will return a status code 201 with message success true and with the user data, user ID, name, or email. All the data will be returned. Similarly, we have a get user person, and by using this controller, easily call the services functions to get all the users. If we want to single user, you can use basic controller call the get user by ID. And if you want to update any user, so you can use the update user services using the user ID and email. Similarly, you can use the delete user function. That's all about the user dot controllers. Now, after that, we have created user routes. What this routes job is, basically what the routes is do or is doing. Basically, as the name suggests, routes job is to route the upcoming request. Routes job is to match the upcoming URL. After mapping the path, it will s- call the matched path, uh, uh, matched path. That's the job of the routes. For example, you can take the real life example. Suppose a man walking a new man coming on on a new places. Suppose he wants to go somewhere, a new government office. Now, a person standing on the street, he goes to that person. The visitor will ask, "Where is the I have to go?" Then visitor will be give some instructions or directions, and that directions he follow and goes to by following this path, he goes to their destination. That's the job of routes. Similarly, routes act like a person standing on the street, and you can say the request will be act as a visitor. You don't know where to go. A router will be route or gives the request to a particular path to follow to get the desired result or get their destination. So that's all about the routes. Now let's see what I have done in the coding section. I have imported Express. Why I have imported it? Because we can use the in a route inbuilt Express route functionality, creating the route instance of Express. We can easily route the URL. Also, I have used the auth section. No, why auth section? Because auth middleware. Because before it's going to the controller of business logic, it's first it should be first verified by our server whether the upcoming request is of a valid user or not. After verifying, it will routes to the controller and then controller to services, then the repository. That's why I have imported auth. Now I have imported the async handler that will handle the all the error related to the async await functions. Uh, and the fourth one is I have imported all the functions of the controller uh, because I have to after matching or mapping the URL of the path of the request, we have to call a function. So which functions we have to call? We have to call the controller. Controller will receive the request and expect the uh, data from the user and then all the services functions with that data. Then services will call the after validating the business logic, then services will call where the repository sections, whether then repository sections will update or create according to the request. User data will be generated and then return the desired or requested data to the user. Uh, that's why I have imported the controller, all the controller functions here. Now I have in the sixth line I have created the uh, one instance of the uh, router. After creating, I have uses the first validate the whether the user is a valid user or not. I have user router dot use auth. It takes you to the authentication as I have already discussed in the previous uh, days or how the authentication works using the JWT authentication. You can watch that previous day's videos if you interested in that section. Now, after authentication, suppose it is valid user request. The first URL will be mapped. Suppose someone want to use the HTTP port method. Port method will be mapped and then slash. After what? After mapping the URL, it's called the create user function that create first it go to the async handler where first it check whether the any error or not. If there is there will be error, if this error will be sent to the central error handling section where uh, first error will be checked. If there is no error, then user create function will report and it will take you to the controller sections where create user. It will first from the routes, it will take you to the controller sections where it will take the rack or rest as a parameter. And from here, as I have already discussed, we'll call the create user services with the upcoming data. Similarly, suppose someone want to get the a user using uh, ID or someone want to update its data. I have here used patch, not put. Why? Because patch will update a particular field. Suppose someone want to change his now from Rahul to Rahul Sharma. That patch will be used, but instead of using patch, if we use put, it will replace all the data with the current data. All the email ID will be replaced with the new one. So that's why we are not using the put. Similarly, if there will be delete HTTP methods, then it's called the delete user. At the end, I have export the default router because I have to use it again in the app section, app.js express app section, so that it can be easily imported on the app.js file. Now, as we can, I have uses the or imported the user route from the routes user.route as I have uh, discussed. After requesting logger using the element, after converting the data to the JSON object, after checking the rate limit, uh, after that I have use app.use API.user. If this path will be matched, then it will call the user route and it will take you to user routes. At the end, it will call the error handler or centralized error handler, and it will export the default app. Why the app is exporting there? Because we can easily import it in the server.js file where the server is started or using the app.listen. So that's all about today's learning or in the backend sections. Uh, Let me recap all what I have learned today. I have basically created the user routes, user controllers, user services, and repository. Each sections has their own responsibilities. Uh, Let me discuss one by one, or discuss partially one by one. User routes uh, map the routes and call the controller functions according to the request. After calling the controller's job is to handles the HTTP request and respond to the client or users in the JSON format. After controllers, it goes to the controller will call the services with mm, extracted user data from the HTTP request. A user services will call the repository after checking all the business logic, satisfying after satisfying all the business logic, it will call the repository. Repository will handle all the data related, or you can say how to handle the data, how to store the data in the repository, to create, to store, to update. That's according to the request of the services. It will be done by the repository and return the required data. That data will go to the controller, and controller will response the status code with the data in JSON formats. That's all about the today's uh, backend. Thank you.